Hey guys, my name is Katie Ziskind. I am the owner of Wisdom Within Counseling and Coaching, and I specialize with distant couples who are struggling sexually and emotionally. You can learn more about working with me at wisdomwithinct.com. So this is a raw video of my podcast episode. I record my podcast, All Things Love and Intimacy, and I post it on Spotify and on Apple. So it's a free resource for you guys. And today you're going to be getting the inside view of how I record my podcast, and you're getting to see me record it live. You'll see me kind of pause sometimes and cut certain things out, like if my dog barks or something like that. So I think these can be kind of fun because you get to see kind of the work that goes into it, as well as some of like the topics that I go over. So this is episode 45 of my podcast, All Things Love and Intimacy, the behind the scenes version. And today we're going to be talking about breaking cycles of sexual avoidance, understanding sexual avoidance, and understanding the recipe that a lot of couples, the ingredients in the recipe that a lot of couples are like missing when it comes to having a healthy, regular, passionate, erotic sex life. So you're going to hear me start my podcast, you're going to hear me do a little intro, and you're going to hear me set it up. So bear with me just a moment here. Welcome to another episode of the All Things Love and Intimacy podcast. I'm your host, Katie Ziskind. I'm a certified sex therapy informed professional. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a relationship coach. And I specialize in couples who feel distant, sexually frustrated, or sexually rejected. And I help you build emotional bonding as well as sexual intimacy. So you can learn more about working with me at wisdomwithinct.com. This entire podcast is intended to help you feel more comfortable, confident, and get familiar talking about your sexuality, sexual needs, expectations, and open up sex as a healthy topic of conversation in your home and with your partner. So a lot of times our culture puts pressure on sexual performance, or we feel like we don't have a sexual voice, or we feel like our sexual urges are not normal. And so this podcast is intended to help you view your sexuality in a positive light and understand that your sexual urges, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anyone else, and it's all consensual and respectful, are within normal range. So we talk about in this episode a little bit about how to shift sexually avoidant behaviors, which means understanding where sexually avoidant behaviors come from, understanding sex positive education and the different types of arousal, the pleasure systems that each gender biologically has, and then also ways that you might be able to integrate techniques and tools that you might be able to integrate into your relationship to create sexual safety, comfort, reassurance, playfulness, and most importantly, optimal pleasure. Because we know that a good sex life is not about doing it a certain way or a certain number of times a week, and it's more about creating a special, pleasurable, and fun experience. So we're going to jump into this episode all about sexual avoidance. So the first piece I want to talk about when it comes to sexual avoidance is communication. And this falls under emotional intimacy. So emotional intimacy is a realm, a foundational building block that helps you and your partner feel special to each other on an emotional level. And communication is going to help you feel sexually safe. And that helps you feel seen, appreciated, valued, understood. So a lot of times when we're not even discussing our emotions, it doesn't make sex safe. So when communication's not going well or there's negative communication, we have blame, which is you always, you never. We start to see these extremes, right? You never let me talk. You always talk over me. Or you never do the dishes. Or blah, 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 right? So always, never. Notice if you're using that language, and we want to shift into emotionally focused sharing. We also have blame, criticism. We have withdrawing, or the silent treatment, as a form of negative communication. So this is often not necessarily conscious behavior, but sometimes people will use the silent treatment when they're just like emotionally overwhelmed. So you don't know what to say. You feel like anything you are about to say will only make your partner more mad or make them more upset with you. And so you decide not to say anything. And so the silent treatment is actually a sign that you need some communication skills. It is okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes in a conflict. But in that moment, more than anything, it can be helpful to tell your partner something that's reassuring. Like, I value our marriage. I really value our relationship. We can get through this and everything's going to be okay. I want to understand you. So shifting away from the withdrawal cycle and the silent treatment is going to be really important when it comes to remedying communication issues and creating a healthy sex life. We also see yelling. I see raising voices, increased heart rate. So this is what we call emotional flooding or emotional dysregulation. And when you're yelling, this is actually a form of negative communication, and it's going to detract and damage your sex life. So think of sexual passion as we need safety, we need openness, we need relaxation. And if we're yelling, we're like the exact opposite of relaxed. Like, yelling is not relaxed. So we need to get to the relaxed place to express sexual desires and build desire. So if there's anger issues, if there's some unresolved conflicts that kind of get escalated and you're starting to feel the tension build and you're walking on eggshells and you're sweating in this conversation with your partner, it's not really a conversation anymore. It's now an escalating conflict. And so learning communication tools and better understanding your partner's emotional needs will actually improve your sex life. Because if you can talk about finances, parenting values, how to handle challenges with your in-laws or work issues with your boss or like anything that's a triggering subject, if you can handle those with ease and stay calm and stay grounded, then you'll be able to discuss sex in the same way. So when you communicate about emotional aspects in a calm, relaxed way, and you're emotionally in tune with your partner, you're letting them know that their feelings are important to you, you're curious, you're optimistic, you're hopeful, that's really important. And we also want to make sure that we are not, if our partner says like, hey, I'm having this issue, we're not trying to fix it. We don't want to go into fix it mode because that can actually be invalidating. We actually want to go into awareness mode, like understand what your partner's experience is emotionally and see maybe what's going on for them. Hear their story and understand what they're feeling. So step into your partner's shoes. Try to really understand them. See what they need for comfort. See what you can do to help meet their needs for reassurance and comfort. So if you're not communicating very easily, you're probably also not communicating about sex. So in order to make your sex life healthy, and the couples that have the most successful, loving, beautiful, passionate, pleasurable sex lives talk about sex regularly, right? It's a kitchen table conversation, just like talking about your child's daycare or talking about you need to buy shampoo, right? Whatever is on the grocery list, we're going to talk about sex too. How was our last sexual experience would be a great question to ask your partner. What did you enjoy about our past sexual experience the most? What did you find most pleasurable in the past regarding our sexual experiences? What do you need in your environment, lighting-wise, smells, textures of clothing? What do you need sensory-wise to experience sexual pleasure? Is there a sex toy that you would like us to incorporate into our experience to help you experience more pleasure and enjoyment? Is there anything I can do to help you unload mentally any responsibilities so that we can both fully enjoy sexual pleasure? So we're looking at creating pleasure versus, have it be penetrative focused or orgasm focused. So we're talking about sex more openly. We also want to talk about sexual needs, desires, concerns, insecurities, fears, misunderstandings, frustrations, understand what makes your partner avoid sex, right? Maybe you talk with your partner about sex and your partner's like, it was actually really painful last time we had sex. Like, it burned, it was chafing a little bit, it burned when I peed. Like, I actually didn't really like it that much, right? You don't have to take that personally, but you can start to look at, like, do we need to add in lubricant? Like, external lubricant can make it more smooth and enjoyable. Do we need to increase foreplay to increase natural lubrication? Foreplay can build excitement, increase those natural lubrication juices. Was there something that felt non-consensual? What can we do to create more safety? So focus on pleasure and enjoyment and open the conversation. You guys might have different things that you find pleasurable and enjoyable, and then you'll have mutual things you also find pleasurable and enjoyable too. So another piece to breaking this cycle of sexual avoidance, because it does become a cycle. What happens is we have one person that wants sex and the other person starts avoiding sex. And sex becomes this emotionally charged subject where there's anxiety around sex, there's stress around sex. Maybe sex feels like an obligation and it's like a chore. Sex is dull, sex is boring, sex is something you do for your partner, not for your own pleasure, right? So sex becomes this very triggered, charged subject in an avoidance cycle. And then we avoid the thing that's causing us stress. So then we just don't have sex ever and don't talk about it because we think that's the way to not have the stress. It's not true. The stress is still there. It's better to deal with the avoidance cycle and the root issues rather than just avoiding what we think is causing the stress. So building sexual confidence and talking about sexual intimacy is actually a beautiful part of overcoming sexual avoidance. So a piece here is we may have personal burnout issues that lead to a sexually avoidant cycle. So sometimes we're too focused on our careers. Yes, it can be helpful to build a career and have that financial stability, but it can also lead you to feel exhausted. And if you're drinking caffeine all day, lots of coffee and living off sugar, your adrenal glands are going to be burnt out and you'll experience adrenal fatigue. If you have a boss that you don't like or your employment environment is very negative, you may have resentment lingering from work and stress that's coming from work, because your boss was upset with you or because you don't feel like you can look up to your boss, and that personal stress plays a role. We also have stuff like family issues, family conflict, in-law issues, how to deal with extended family. Having a sibling or a parent with alcoholism or a drug issue can be very stressful. Having a child with special needs or with mental health issues can lead to stress and fatigue. So personal burnout and stress, anxiety will play a massive role in erotic desire. So when we look at, a lot of people that come to me and say, I have no sexual desire. I'm like, okay, well, that's all right. And let's take every piece of this pie and look at it as holistically. So a lot of times when we don't have sexual desire, part of it is because our nervous system is so overstressed. So think of yourself as a cave person. You have fight, which is like punch, flight, which is run away, and freeze, which is be a raccoon in headlights. So your body will go into fight, flight, or freeze when you're overly stressed. And this is a survival mechanism that your body does because it's very smart and intelligent. So you have to thank your body for knowing how to do that. But that does not allow for sex hormones to work, right? So your body, let's say your body makes a healthy amount of hormones for the day. But the first thing in the morning, you're checking your work email. And then there's a crisis going on. And you're responding to the chaos in your life all day long. And you're in go, go, go mode. You are overly stressed. And though it might be good stress at work, you're working for that next promotion, it does take a toll on your nervous system. And so this can leave you feeling tired. You're in fight, flight, freeze all day. And you actually don't have any energy reserves or hormone capability at the end of the day to make sex hormones, to get aroused. You're essentially burning out your nervous system by being overly anxious and overly stressed. So you will physiologically have a decreased libido. You will have no sex drive because your body doesn't have the hormone reserves to physically make sex hormones to get you aroused. So if you are dealing with a lot of stressors, this will leave you depleted on a biological level when it comes to sexual pleasure. And another way to think about this is that we have fight, flight, freeze, which is our body's natural response to stress, whether that be a woolly mammoth chasing you and you're fleeing as a caveman or cavewoman or cave person, right? Or if you're checking your work email or you're 5 minutes late to work or something happens, your body's going to respond to stress, all stresses. If you're planning your child's birthday party, that's a stressor, right? That's still something your body's going to maybe go into an anxious mode about. So it can definitely make it difficult when you're overly stressed and burnt out emotionally to connect on a sexual level. So think of a precursor to rebuilding sexual desire as needing to be relaxed. And a lot of us forget how to be relaxed. So if you're always in that fight, flight, freeze, stressed out state, your body forgets how to calm down. We forget how to sit still. We forget how to be at peace in our bodies. We forget what it feels like to be relaxed. So learning relaxation practices and training yourself and conditioning yourself to relax is actually really important when it comes to rebuilding sexual desire and sustaining a strong sexual connection in your marriage. So what does it mean to relax? It means you can practice through mindfulness meditation, guided meditation every morning. You can listen to positive affirmations. You can take a gentle yoga class, and at the last 10 minutes of the yoga class, they have you lie down on your back and do a pose called Shavasana, which is a final relaxation pose. And it actually teaches you how to relax. So learning how to relax through, these beautiful Eastern culture, almost like medicines, is very important. In our Western culture in the United States, we are very, very go, 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 make more money, buy the bigger house, get the bigger car. So I want you to think about all of that fading away in order to rebuild sexual desire. Just the way you are. You can reel it in, tell yourself the amount of money in your bank account's enough. The car you drive is good enough. The house you're in is good enough. And relax that very active mind that you have for a moment. And training yourself to relax, to be mindful in the present moment, are essential skills to giving and receiving sexually. So in order to even have sexual desire be developed in the body, we have to be aware of our body. So we have to be like, okay, I feel your hands on my arm. I feel your hand on my belly. I'm touching your back. We're making out. I feel your lips on my lips. We have to be in tune with those bodily signals. And when we are in fight, flight, freeze, stress and fatigue mode, we are disconnected. Mind and body get disconnected, and that will drain your sexual energy. You'll be disconnected from those arousal signals. So mindfulness practices can also help reconnect your mind and body and help repair some of those libido issues. So another piece is really understanding sex positive education. So a lot of times when we grow up, let's say in a strict conservative religious upbringing or in an upbringing where we don't get sexual education, we often get all that we know about sex from pornography. Now, pornography is not inherently good or bad. However, pornography is not a form of erotic education. Pornography is a erotic stimulus, meaning if you watch pornography, you may find your body physically getting aroused because you have mirror neurons in your brain that when you look at someone experiencing pleasure, whether they're faking it or not, your brain registers that and says, wow, okay, my body's responding, right? It can be arousing to watch other people be aroused. Just like if you're at a comedy show and you see other people around you laughing, whether or not the show's that funny, you're probably going to start laughing because your brain registers, wow, they're laughing, I'm laughing, right? There's this cycle of laughter. Mirror neurons are incredible. So when we look at pornography, we start to sometimes believe that those people are truly experiencing pleasure, right? These are paid actors and actresses. These people are getting paid money to act as if they are experiencing pleasure. Yes, they may be truly experiencing pleasure, but they are putting on a show. It is a musical, it is a Broadway production, it's a Hollywood movie. Pornography is not accurate sexual health education, right? We don't see in pornography discussions of consent. We don't see people exchanging emotions. We don't see people farting, right? We don't see people laughing together. We don't see this very human experience of emotional exchange, and which is actually really necessary when we're having real life partner experiences. Hey, how's this feeling for you? Do you like this? Would you like me to stop? We often do not see a safe word used in pornography. A safe word is a word that you and your partner develop so that at any time, both of you can pause and stop the sexual experience if one of you finds it uncomfortable or gets triggered, right? We don't see trauma-informed pornography. Another thing that pornography doesn't show is foreplay. The female arousal system, or a vulva owner, requires about 45 to 90 minutes of foreplay. This is before even penetrative sex is considered, if it is considered. So 45 to 90 minutes for the female body, and about 4 to 8 minutes for the male body. So a penis owner only needs about 4 to 8 minutes of sexual stimulation in order to reach peak sexual arousal or have that option for an orgasm. And sometimes it's longer and sometimes it's shorter. A female or a vulva owner requires 45 to 90 minutes to have enough time to reach peak sexual arousal. This means the vaginal area gets lubricated, the vulva, the clitoris start to become engorged with blood, circulation occurs, there's heat, there's throbbing, there is an arousal experience that does take 45 to 90 minutes. And then the possibility of an orgasm occurs. And the female body has a shorter refractory period, meaning she can have multiple orgasms. So sex positive education is really important to better understand foreplay needs. A lot of times foreplay is much too short, which makes sex dull, boring, an obligation, part of the to-do list, and it causes a female partner to forfeit or sacrifice her own pleasure in order to just get sex off the to-do list. And it makes a cycle of sexual avoidance. Because when sex is painful, right, sometimes that can be from not enough foreplay. Sex is dull or boring, we're not mentally there. We're not sexually present. And so there is this avoidance cycle that develops and intimacy issues develop. So learning about the female arousal system, creating positive sexual experiences is really important. And when we look at sexual pleasure and sexual activity, we're not always needing to end in penis and vagina sex. We're not always needing to have this be the end all be all outcome, which is often what pornography demonstrates. So pornography can make you think that you shouldn't talk during sex. It can make you think that emotional exchanges are not needed. Pornography can set up an unrealistic expectation that you don't need a safe word. Pornography can also set up an unrealistic expectation that you only need 4 minutes of foreplay. And also pornography does put a lot of pressure on penis owners or males to remain erect. It's very common for a male to have an erection, lose an erection, have an erection, lose a little bit, throughout an entire sexual experience. And so a lot of times there's pressure on men to perform, maintain an erect penis, and there's also misinformation through pornography for men to think that a hard penis is the one route for providing a female partner with pleasure. So a lot of times there's so much pressure put on penetrative sex being this end-all be-all form of pleasure. And pleasure sexually can be so much more diverse. You can have pleasure in making out. You can have pleasure in holding each other's hand. You can have pleasure in giving back massages or foot massages or showering together or taking a bath together. There can be pleasure in gazing into each other's eyes, right? Pleasure is not just penis and vagina sex, and that is not the way all sexual activities should end, right? We need diversity. We also need to kind of broaden the horizon of what this looks like. I kind of wanted just to bring a little bit of light to pornography in that way, as it can be an erotic stimulus, but it does lead to kind of misinformation or inaccurate education, because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I saw this porn star really enjoy this, so like then my real life partner should also enjoy this too. And those are just not, we can't take that leap. We can't think that a real life partner will like what we're watching in porn or what's been done in porn. We also can't think that what we've seen in porn is going to apply with a real life partner. So getting sex positive education from sessions with me gives you a safe space to talk about what your partner likes, what you like, what brings pleasure to you both, rather than just trying to replicate videos you've seen of actors and actresses. Another piece to pornography is that it really just is a kind of an avenue where it can be like isolating and lead you to withdraw and can develop into a compulsion and addiction, right? So if you're pulling away from your real life partner to watch pornography, your body, when in that compulsive state, if you're watching pornography more and more, you're building a tolerance to it, you're getting dopamine from pornography, you can actually develop pornography-induced erectile dysfunction. So that means that your body and your mind becomes conditioned to only be sexually aroused from pornography. And then when you try to be sexually active with your real life partner, your body won't work because you've been watching so much pornography in like massive amounts. And pornography addiction issues can lead to cycles of sexual avoidance in your marriage and in your relationship. So this is a really big point, that if you're watching pornography, some people watch it daily, right? That's going to impact your relationship, your sex life, and lead to sexual dysfunction and erectile dysfunction, and issues with arousal with women as well, no matter your gender. If you're watching pornography by yourself in isolation, withdrawing from your partner, and then frustrated with your sex life with your partner, your pornography consumption is one of the massive pieces that contribute to sexually avoidant behaviors and sexual frustrations and challenges with sexual arousal in your marriage with a real life person. So look at yourself, see if you're developing a compulsive use of pornography, or you have to watch it every day, or you're only happy if you watch it, because this can definitely leave you struggling with erectile-induced pornography challenges, or arousal challenges or desire challenges with your real life partner, right? We can definitely condition ourselves to only become sexually aroused and perform essentially when watching pornography. So keep that in mind when you are working on breaking the cycle of sexual avoidance. Another piece here is really understanding past trauma. So a lot of us go through life and we kind of shift into that fight, flight, freeze mode related to sexual trauma. And sexual trauma is something that is never the victim's fault. So I want to have that be loud and clear in this video, is that if you've experienced sexual trauma or trauma of any kind, this was something done to you in an unwanted way, and it's very common for victims to blame themselves. So I want you to practice saying, it was not my fault. It was not your fault for the things that were inappropriately done to you. It's not your fault. You were not asking for it. The clothes you were wearing didn't tell someone to hurt you, right? They did something that was abusive to you. And, you know, we're going to step out of victim mentality and step into survivor mentality. But I really want to just take a minute to talk about past sexual trauma. So sexual trauma can be anything from being touched in an unwanted way on any area of your body, sexual abuse, sexual assault, rape, molestation, incest. Another piece of sexual trauma, we have non-contact sexual traumas. So sexual trauma that's non-contact could be sending a naked photo to someone and then that person violating the boundaries that you thought were with that photo and sending it to, let's say, your entire high school. Or you may also experience non-contact sexual trauma with someone threatening to send those photos to family members of yours. You may also have non-contact sexual trauma related to someone cheating on you, infidelity, or a partner's unfaithfulness is a form of non-contact sexual trauma that leads to emotional scarring, trust issues, fears, that fight, flight, freeze response. And all of these types of sexual trauma, and there are more that I didn't list, but they affect your ability to be in intimate, close partnerships and romantic relationships. So sometimes we don't see these things come up until then we're talking about sex, or then we're 10, 20, 30 years into a marriage. So you may have been really functioning at a really high level, and now these things are coming up, and that's okay. But avoiding sexual intimacy can be a side effect of having been through unwanted touch, sexual trauma, and non-contact sexual abuse. And avoiding intimacy is kind of that flight response. So it's leaving, going away from that stimulus or that trigger that brings up these emotions. And so essentially during sexual trauma of any kind, we have pain associated with sex or our sexuality. We can also experience religious trauma. So say you grew up in an environment and you were told fear-based and guilt-based messages around your sexuality, that masturbation is evil and bad, and that you're going to grow hair on your palms, or that God will come down and burn your family up, or, you'll humiliate your family, that, if you do masturbate, God will know and you'll go to hell. And there's this devilish energy around sexual urges. And a lot of times too, we're taught that premarital sex will lead us to be ostracized from the church, that we'll lose all the people close to us. We even face public bullying, public humiliation, public shaming. In some cultures, even dating someone before marriage, or holding hands before marriage, or, showing certain your arm skin or your shoulder skin or your belly skin, or, wearing flashy earrings, or, we have all different types of cultures. And sometimes women especially are blamed for the sexual trauma they experienced. And we also experience religious trauma. So these two kind of go together. So there may be a cycle of sexual avoidance that you are experiencing in your marriage as a result of religious trauma and sexual trauma. So self-compassion is really important, to be able to say to yourself, I did not cause this. I am not to blame. And so stepping away from self-blame. A lot of times we blame ourselves because we're trying to figure out and analyze why this happened to us. It's so painful. It's so emotionally traumatizing that we're like, oh, how come I had to experience this? We try to rationalize it in our minds. And so blame sometimes comes up from that. So I want you to not blame yourself. I want you to have self-compassion and be gentle with yourself. And I want you to start to be really positive in the way you talk to yourself. Another piece of sexual trauma can even be having been in a sexual experience with a past partner and having that partner criticize the shape of your body or the smell of your body, right? And that is so incredibly traumatizing. So you can say, I love the shape of my body. I deserve sexual pleasure. Inherently, organically, my sexual urges are normal. It's actually very healthy for me to let out my sexual self. I am allowing myself to be a sexual being, and I am liberating myself from the chains of trauma of my past. And, just talking to yourself in a way that's loving and kind is very important when it comes to rebuilding sexual desire. Right? We're not forcing desire to come, right? We're just creating an environment of sexual safety, both internally and externally, for pleasure to come about and enjoyment and fun to come about. So when you've had past trauma, it's really helpful to tell your partner about it. They can know what you need. They can help to make accommodations. And these things are a beautiful part of having a voice, right? You can even say to yourself, anytime something doesn't feel good, I am going to speak up and say something about it. Right? It might even include, right? Talking might include asking your partner for things you need. Like, I really need a hug right now to feel safe and comforted. Right? So have a voice, speak up, and recognize that past trauma can lead to sexual avoidance. Now, another piece to sexual avoidance is just generally, we need to create an association of pleasure with touch. So kind of on the offshoot of trauma, we've had touch equal pain and touch equal fear and touch equal anxiety. So now we're shifting into this new chapter. We're creating an association of pleasure with touch and pleasure when we think about our sexuality. And it means letting go of shame and guilt, fear and anxiety and insecurity that often comes from a strict conservative religious upbringing. But I want us to think about pleasure off of sex for a minute. So a lot of times people get a lot of pleasure from dessert, right? From sweets, right? We like banana bread, or we like chocolate cake, or we like cookies, or, you know, we like lemon bars, right? We have all different types of desserts that we like to have. And, you know, if we really like a dessert, we might learn to make it at home. Like you might go to a potluck and try a really delicious type of bar, and you might ask the person for the recipe so that you can make that for yourself at home, and you learn about that and you get the ingredients, and there's this process of expanding upon the pleasure that your tongue had tasting that wonderful sweet treat. And then now you have this recipe, and sometimes you might add variations like cinnamon or coconut or chocolate chips, or you get to make it your own, right? And so I want you to think about sexual pleasure in the same way, right? The first step is trying something new, just the first bite. If you like it, okay, great. We can ask for the recipe. We can go shopping. We can, you know, make it into something that really feels good for you. And if you don't like it, that's okay. We can try something else. We have a lot of desserts at the potluck. And, you know, maybe there's some desserts that taste really good and have a texture you like, and maybe some desserts, you know, taste a little different and it's a new flavor, and that's okay, right? So when we look at sexual pleasure, we're looking at really creating an environment, right? A bedroom to start, comfortable sheets, comfortable clothing, low lighting. We have a clean, organized space. We're not smelling dirty laundry. We have a wonderfully curated environment that supports pleasure. So this means taking a look around your room. If there are some boxes or old magazines you need to move out, or you need to dust off your nightstands, or you need to vacuum, or, you know, sometimes we need to change the positioning of where a dresser or a bureau might be in the room, right? You might want to, if you have kids, maybe you add a sound machine, or you add a fan outside your door so that there's, you know, masking of sounds, right? You might want to get different sheets if you don't like the texture of the sheets on your skin, or if you need a certain temperature in the room, you know, set your thermostat an hour or two before you're going to be in that sexual experience, so that you can be warm or you can be cooler, you know, depending on the temperature of your environment. So I want you to think about pleasure as really creating this environment where you can relax mentally. Another piece with building in pleasure is talking about what you need in terms of your mind. So sometimes when we avoid sex, it's because we are very stuck in a responsible or caretaking role in other areas of life. So the mind is full. It is completely maxed out with responsibility, which again prevents relaxation, which is the precursor to rebuilding desire. So if there's, you know, dirty diapers to change, if there's lunches to pack, if there's dirty dishes in the sink, if there's a mountain of laundry, if there's this massive to-do list, you have to make the kids' dentist appointments, if you have to, we call it the gotta mind, you gotta do this, gotta do that. If you are stuck in that state of caretaking and responsibility, it will prevent you from being mentally present in your sex life. So we are very stuck in the roles of career building, we're in the hat of parenting, we're wearing that hat. So in order to develop a strong sexual, intimate connection in your relationship, it means connecting with the sexual side of yourself first, so that you can identify that side and allow it to be free and like liberate it and let it out and be sexually open with your partner. So connecting to yourself as a sexual being may include self-pleasure or masturbation. It may include viewing yourself in the mirror as a sexual being, looking at yourself naked and saying, wow, I'm hot, I'm attractive, I'm desirable, I am beautiful, I am handsome, whatever it is, I am sexy, right? Looking at yourself and viewing yourself as a being that has erotic energy within, right? We have companionship elements and caretaking elements of a marriage, and we also have erotic and playful sexual elements of a marriage that often get pushed to the back burner. So part of bringing back the sexual passion and sexual pleasure and eroticism in your marriage is viewing yourself as an erotic being. So this means connecting with your sexual fantasies, connecting with your body signals and the feeling of being an attractive, sexy, hot human. Also really being able to understand what satisfies you sexually. So what types of touch you like, where on your body you like that touch, so that you can more easily tell your partner, hey, I really want you to touch me here. Or I really feel so aroused when you touch me here. I love it when you play with this part of my body. So part of shifting out of sexual avoidance is getting connected to yourself, so that you can verbalize which sexual areas of your body you want touched by your partner. You can be really aware of your timeline for sexual arousal. And by seeing yourself as a sexual being and developing sexual confidence and putting your sexy erotic self hat on, right, you're actually allowing for more color, vibrancy, playfulness, and connection to evolve in your marriage. So your marriage is a safe container for being a sexual being, right? You ideally, with emotional intimacy, right, we have respect. We have this ability to communicate. We have knowing that there's a strong emotional bond. So then there's this safe playground for you and your partner to be sexually expressive with each other. And so you can say, hey, I don't really like this that much. I would really like this instead. And you can start to work with your own personal narrative and see and view and reflect upon yourself and perceive yourself in a sexual way. And that is a huge element to creating and fostering an environment in which desire can grow. And if you guys have both been very stuck in the role of parenting, caregiving, mother or father mode, career mode, right, it's going to take a little bit of time to get connected to your sexual identity. So just know to be patient with yourself, be understanding with yourself. And I hope you enjoyed this topic, all about breaking the cycle of sexual avoidance. Both of you can work together. These issues are totally workable. There is hope. You are not alone if you are stuck in roommate syndrome, or you feel like business partners with your spouse, or you're stuck in companionship mode and you're really struggling to get sexually intimate together, having healthy sexual energy, or if you don't know how to flirt with each other anymore. I would love to help you both rebuild both emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy. We talk about everything from, if you're having painful sex, if you're struggling with differences in sexual desire, if there's emotional conflict or past unresolved anger issues that are impacting your sex life. If maybe there has been some past trauma where you were criticized by a past partner sexually, or you've experienced unwanted touch, or in a past relationship your partner was unfaithful, there was infidelity. All of these aspects play a role in sexual avoidance. If you or your partner is struggling with a pornography addiction, or just feel like you have to have pornography to get aroused, right? That is a contributing factor. If you're burnt out from work or whatever you do during the day and you're in fight, flight, freeze mode, you're physiologically unable to rebuild desire. We have to reset the hormones. We have to create life balance. We have to have good nutrition. We have to have good sleep. We have to have life balance in order for our bodies to become sexually aroused. So just know that stress and fatigue play a big role in lack of sexual desire. So there are a lot of pieces to this pie. And if you have any questions, if you'd like to gain a safe space to talk about sex, to repair a sexless marriage, to rebuild your sex life, just gain sex positive education and talk about sex in a comfortable and confident way, I would love to support you. I work with couples who struggle with emotional intimacy, sexual avoidance, sexual rejection, and want to feel wanted, you want to rebuild sexual desire. You both really want to rebuild sexual pleasure and have more satisfying sexual experiences together. So I would love to work with you and help you improve your partnership and your marriage, both emotionally and sexually. You can work with me at wisdomwithinct.com. That's wisdomwithinct.com. I'm Katie Ziskind. I'm a certified sex therapy informed professional. I'm a Gottman Level 2 marriage therapist. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in multiple states. I'm a relationship coach, and I specialize in sex and intimacy issues with couples who feel distant and want to build long-lasting love. So I would love to support you. And if you are enjoying this podcast, you can scroll down to whichever platform you are listening on, and there is an option to leave a 5-star review. So click in there, click the 5 stars, and then leave in the comment section 2 of your positive takeaways from this episode. So 2 things that you want to take home with you and bring into your relationship as nuggets of knowledge. And writing these 2 things out not only helps other listeners see what you liked, and they can say, oh yeah, me too, but it also helps you solidify and really remember 2 things that you want to bring home with you. So writing them out, leaving them out in the comment section and in your review helps others, and it also helps yourself. So if you're looking to work with me, you can book a free phone consult at wisdomwithinct.com.